You've been writing about the Tesla Cybertruck. This is one of the most anticipated new vehicles in some time. And you have a new story coming out about some of the high-tech features. What inspired you?
What's interesting is, Tesla talks about first principles, and that's like, let's stop thinking about the way other people are doing things and let's just do it the way we want to do it. And with their first vehicles, they couldn't completely do that, right? Because the supply chain was the way the supply chain was, and they had to make vehicles, they had to make money, they had to not go out of business. But with the Cybertruck, now they're a company that has a lot of money, and they just decided, okay, let's push the boundaries further, right? Before we did a lot of software tricks that nobody was doing. Now we're going to do a bunch of hardware tricks that nobody's doing. And it's really fascinating.
Well, let's start with maybe the most obvious of those hardware tricks, the stainless steel exterior, very edgy design, but a really unusual process.
Yeah, and that stainless steel design really defines the truck in a lot of ways, right? Because once they decided on stainless steel, they say in their interviews, right? They explain this. Once they decided on stainless steel that was hardened, right? It was difficult to bend. Then that's why you get that shape, that strange shape of the vehicle, because every piece has to be mostly flat, right? They do have a process that they developed with air to bend it to get the right shape, but mostly those are just all flat pieces. And that's why you get that triangular shape and you get this material. And I thought it was really interesting. A couple of the Tesla executives were explaining, they said, when you make a pickup truck, you make it strong on the inside. You have these big pieces of metal and it has to be strong. But on the outside, you put this thin layer of paint that could be chipped with a door ding, paint that could be chipped with a rock on the highway. So you put this delicate paint on the outside of this super tough truck. And they said, we're going to put the tough stuff on the outside. It also is going to contribute to the structure of the vehicle. So it does have some, I don't want to say weight bearing, but it does cause, more torsional rigidity. And they said they put less structure inside because the stainless steel is doing some of that work. And so you get this crazy iconic look, you get these crazy shapes, and it's really tough. I mean, we'll have to see it in the wild, but people have thrown shopping carts at it and stuff. And it's one of those vehicles where you don't have to worry about it getting dinged. And then obviously Tesla saves the process of painting it. They will sell you for, I think, $6,000 a vinyl wrap in different colors and stuff if you want it to make look cool, but they
Well,
don't have to
because
paint it in the factory.
when everyone's got a Cybertruck, then that will be the way it'll still look different.
Yeah, yeah. And there has been a trend toward wrapping vehicles, especially in the Tesla community, because everybody gets they're like white, black, red. Tesla is not known for great colors. And so there has been a lot of wrapping going on. It'll be fun to see the wraps.
The other thing about the stainless steel exterior is this idea of it being bulletproof. And
Oh,
maybe
yeah.
maybe not all the way bulletproof, at least, bullet resistant, pretty safe and protective.
Yeah, and I don't know, even from watching all these interviews and stuff, whether it was deliberate or whether they made it sound like, oh yeah, let's shoot it up and see what happens. That it was not like a deliberate design choice, that it just happened to go that way, and so they decided to highlight it. But they shot it up, with an older weapon, right? A Tommy gun and some other weapons that are not the most powerful in the world, but they're common weapons, right? They are common weapons. And the bullets, didn't get through the door, right? And in a normal car door, they will. Maybe people don't know that from the movies and stuff. Police officers do have reinforced doors, but most people, it will go right through mild steel to the other side. And so I think it's a cute thing that they are using to demonstrate how tough it is. But their executives have also said, if you have a armor piercing bullet, or if you have, a very powerful bullet, it's going to go through the door.
Yeah, it feels. I hope they don't say bulletproof very much, because it could be one of those things like autopilot or full self driving, where you say something that maybe has a technically less all encompassing meaning, but people assume it can do more. And I don't know. Hopefully, people aren't getting shot at, but it
Yeah,
does
or you
happen.
you you get some kids say, "Well, I'll sit in the Cybertruck and you shoot at me," which
Right.
obviously could be disastrous because, among other things, the windows are not bulletproof, right? So, I mean, it's only bulletproof if you shoot at a specific part of the car.
Right, right. So speaking of the windows, of course, a lot of us remember the first reveal of the Cybertruck prototype, and it was on stage, and Elon Musk was talking about, how rugged it was going to be, and he had the chief designer, Franz von Holzholden Holzhausen, Franz von Holzhausen, tossed some ball bearings at it, and famously the windows kind of shattered right there on the stage.
Yeah.
A little bit embarrassing, just a production, or a staging snafu. But what's the status of the glass in the new Cybertruck, the real
Well,
Cybertruck?
it was fun because at the delivery event on November 30th, they kind of reenacted this, and they were obviously in a jovial mood and everything. And so Elon gave the ball to Franz, but this time
A
it was a
baseball this time,
baseball,
yeah.
and we don't know how hard that baseball was, right? There's baseballs and baseballs, there's kids baseballs, whatever, and he kind of, you know, half-heartedly, I would say, threw it at the window and it didn't break, right? So
Okay.
I think they've kind of given up on the idea that it would be able to, suffer a large steel bearing, for whatever technical reasons, safety, etc. The windows are not bulletproof, or I mean, they say they're resistant to breaking, but not a ball bearing.
Fair enough. Fair enough. All right. Aside from the exterior, there's some other pretty cool technology. This is using steer by wire and rear wheel steering. Tell us how that works and what the benefits are.
Okay, so steer by wire, it's not completely new in the industry, but it's also not used very much in the industry, right? And what it is there's no physical connection between the steering wheel and the power steering motors, right? So it's like a video game. You turn the wheel and software tells the motors to do this or that, right? And so what happens in that situation, the rear wheels too in this case, we could talk about that, but what happens is in this case is you could tell those motors to do whatever they want now that they're no physically connected. So you don't have to turn the wheel very much. When you're in a parking lot and you turn a little bit, your wheels turn a lot
Hmm.
because you're in a parking lot and you don't want to be hand over handing, a lot. And then
And
when
you're
you're on
and
the
you're not moving
highway,
very fast. Yeah.
and you're not
You're
moving very fast, right? So it's safe for the wheels to be turning quickly with this kind of joystick controller in a way, in the form of a steering wheel. And then when you're on the highway, obviously you don't want big jerky movements because you could get yourself into some real trouble at 70 miles an hour or whatever. So it moves much less. But the few reviewers who've talked about this, they say it's weird because your brain thinks one thing's going to happen and a different things happens, right? And it happens at different speeds at different rates, and so you kind of have to reprogram your brain to get used to using like a video game controller that could do things that you're not used to.
Did any of them say kind of how long it took them to feel comfortable, with the change from low speed to high speed and the different steering torques?
Well, Marquez Brownlee, who's a tech guy who, but also is doing like a lot of car stuff now, he said that in the couple days he had it, he was still getting used to it. In fact, he said that the weirdest thing about the Cybertruck to him was the steering. It's
Hmm.
the thing that he says every Tesla you have to learn something new, right? They took away the stalk, so you have to use your fingers for turn signals. He said this is the big thing you have to relearn with this Tesla is that weird steering.
Yeah. No, I get it. As someone who gets to drive test vehicles fairly regularly. There are some cars that are really different, or when you first get to use one pedal
Yeah,
acceleration and
sure,
braking,
sure.
it takes a little while to get used to, but often in just a few days, it's amazing how fast we can learn to adapt. It'll be interesting to hear what the Tesla customers have to say about that. One more thing before I let you go. One of the other cool features I want to make sure we touch on is the weight bearing tonneau cover. Of course, we don't usually see the Cybertruck with its bed open. It's usually has almost like a roof over it, but it's really a tonneau. Tell us what's that like?
Well, what's interesting, so that tonneau cover is like you said, it's the default, right?
Hmm.
It's there for aerodynamic efficiency so that the wind doesn't get stuck in the bed, right? The wind's
Hmm.
going to go over the top of the thing, and if it gets stuck in the bed, it's going to start spinning around in the bed, and they don't want that obviously for efficiency reasons. And so that tonneau cover is there, and there's two interesting things about it. One is it can hold 300 pounds, and Marcus Brownlee, the YouTuber, he got up on 1 foot on it. He looks like he probably weighs about 200 pounds. He said that if he jumped on it, he could probably break it if he really wanted to, but you can stand on it. The other thing about the tonneau cover that's kind of interesting is it covers the rear window. So when the tonneau cover is in place, you can't look out the rear window. And so you have to use your infotainment screen has a video feed that's your rear view mirror.
All right. Well, so much unusual, far out, and technology here. We've talked about some of the key things, but there's a lot more in your story. People can read
Absolutely.
about it and autonews.com today. So lots of good stuff there for folks to read about. Lonnie, thanks so much for joining us and keeping an eye on all things Tesla for us.
Thank you. I enjoyed it.